Welcome, everyone, to the general gaming channel known as M12 Warthog Game.
Hey guys, M12 Warthog Game here. I'm back with another video, and today we're doing another episode of Strategy Guide. This time we're not doing a map on risk factions, but we are doing one on a whole entire game from many different factions. But today we are doing Men of the West from the game Warlords 2. This is pretty much my online strategic fighting game. There's like 4 different games in this series, maybe like 4 or 5, and they're all very fun to play. As far as I know, there's Warlords 1, Warlords 2, Warlords 3 is a little different take on it, but I like it as well. It's more strategic based and not really designed of how the soldiers look and everything and stuff like that. It loses some of the key aspects of Warlords 2 and focuses more on a new game, but with some aspects of Warlords 1 in there. But Warlords 3 is actually called Epic Conflict. Then you got Warlords Heroes, but all of them are kind of fun. All of them have strategies, main strategy behind them. But today I'm going to be talking about Men of the West. It's actually my favorite faction to play as in this game, and I'm going to start a brand new campaign. Benerold is the area in which we play. Pretty much the 4 units that you start out with are known as shared units. What I'm going to be going over are the three differences, the 3 types of categories for units. The different categories that they can be in are shared, common, or unique. Now, swordsman's halberdier, swordsman, spearman, archer, all 4 of the ones that you see here are pretty much shared units, as they are shared by pretty much every faction, and they all share the same abilities. Now, there's some that are common, which are shared between many or all, but do not have all of this, that have some things in common, but not everything in common. We'll talk about those. And then there are unique units that are unique to your faction, and pretty much I think every faction has maybe 1 or 2 units that no other faction has, such as, for most cases, a secondary siege unit, your first, your second siege unit, one of your 2 siege units that you can get in the game that will have its own unique thing, except for some. And one of those some applies to the Men of the West. But first, I'm gonna let you guys know that up in the top right, you can see I have a buttload of gold. You start with 500. I'm playing hacked version, so I can buy everything and show you what they do and how to use them for the sake of this demonstration. In the link below, you'll find a link to the game, but that will be an unhacked version if you want to play it legitly. I'm just showing you what you need to do to win this legitly. Getting all this stuff, and we're mainly focusing about the strategy. Spear charge. That is one of the best abilities for a spearman. What that does is you have to wait a little bit longer in order to summon it with spear charge, but what it does is it sends us, the unit comes running out instead of walking out, and it charges at the enemy, doing extra damage with its first initial hit, then it goes back to walking. Note, if you use a ready charge, when their spear charge is ready, you'll have 1 spearman in each row run out with spear charge. This also applies to other specials. Now you have upgrade shield, increases protection, along with all the armor and helmets. Swordsmen, different attack bonuses as well. They have shield advance. Now this is very important, especially regarding shieldmen, which we will buy. Shield advance is a special, and what specials mean is that there will be, after the little circle turns fully red behind a unit on the battle screen, which I will show later, and that means that you can spawn that unit by pressing spacebar. But what that also means, if there's a blue one, is that you can wait a little bit longer and summon it with a special ability. Now, when you have shield advance, they hold their shield above their head like this and walking forward, so any arcing projectiles, mainly from arrows and maybe some siege unit items, siege unit projectiles, pretty much bounce off the shield and they're protected from it. But I'm gonna buy that along with the damage upgrade. But when we come to shield guys, or shield men, they don't have shield advance, like the swordsmen do here, as a special. They just have it. Which means when you spawn them in, they'll spawn in with their shields raised. These guys have a giant shield and a long spear. They're pretty much a Greek hoplite, if you know what those are from military history. I mean, I've taken a class on it in high school and all that stuff, and now I know. Now, one of the most important things, you can buy armor and whatnot for your archer, but one of the most important things you need to buy is archer kick. Now, the reason you need this is because they will not have a melee ability, and they will absolutely be useless. Your archer does not stay at the end of the field firing arrows, although that would be an optimal idea for them to do that. They walk slow, but they have a great range, as you can see. And what happens is these units don't do well in melee. But if they have absolutely nothing to do in melee, then they're just completely screwed over. Having that kick kicks them away from the enemy, although they're not going to really use their bow and arrow if they're too close to them as well. So you got to take in mind. Now with Hailbearer, which I may be pronouncing that wrong, but this has a bonus against swordsmen, a mounted Hailbearer, and a mounted spearman. Now the reason for this is because the tool that these units use is a multi-tool, or was considered to be a multi-tool because it has many uses and had many uses during the actual medieval ages and was very useful, and it stayed around for a while. Swords sort of stayed around for a while, but when you try to slash someone who's wearing steel-plated armor, the sword's not going to cut it and it's going to glance off. They pretty much just kept them around for ceremonial purposes and whatnot. These guys are good. These guys have a wide reach with their melee weapon, so most times they can keep hitting someone and knocking them back, or while hitting them back without having to get up close. You can buy armor from them, but it's not a priority. Now I'm going to talk about the Shieldman, one of the best units and a unique unit to that of the Men of the West. Pretty much they just have armor upgrade. They pretty much have shield advance, but it's not a special. You do not have to buy it. They'll spawn and summoned. Now, we need to get into the next unit that you will have, which is a siege unit. This is a ladderman. Now, this is a shared unit. All units pretty much have this, and they all pretty much all have 2 armor upgrades and the sprint special. Sprint special is similar to that of the spearman, but they don't really get a damage boost with the first lunge attack, as they don't really have a spear, and it's not very good for that kind of charging into battle, as they only have a dagger, as you can see in the little image here. But what they do is more important, is there are 8 different rows in which you can spawn enemies in. Don't even use laddermen on a non-siege battle. If you are sieging a castle, you want to use these. If you're protecting a castle, you have absolutely no need for these. These laddermen go and they attack. They pretty much charge. They don't really do much in terms of attack or defense because they're not a good melee unit. And they set up a ladder. And what that means is that any melee unit that comes to any melee unit of yours that comes to the castle wall does not have to break down a door and make their own entrance into the castle, as they can climb up and over with the ladder. Now, we have the ladder. Now, another thing that you notice... Whoops. Continue. Another thing that you may have noticed is the battering ram, which is also a siege unit. This is a common, not a unique. Now, the reason for this is that the orcs of the south also have a battering ram, but I think that's one of, like, maybe 3 factions have this, I think. Maybe the orcs of the south and none of the west are the only ones. Now, the reason I call this common is because it's the same unit, but not everything about it's the same, as we have rolling start and they have a different ability for their ram. Now, rams are good because they're the only siege unit that I know of that's as effective and that can be effective on sieging and non-siege battles. Now, what I mean by that is that they're giant trolls and giant demon monsters that can be summoned by certain factions as units. They're very big and they do a lot of damage, and they can take a lot of damage. They take forever if you want to summon one, though. Those things can sometimes be deadly, but a battering ram charges in, hits them, and it does a lot of damage. The battering ram can't take as much damage as it would to the troll or demon that it's fighting, although it can deal a lot of damage to it. And also, you're forgetting the fact that battering rams on normal units, on normal-sized units, can hit them and send them back flying. This is particularly good when fighting cavalry units, as they will most of the times, or certain melee units that have giant weapons, can knock people back and walk over them. So they can get to the other side and they don't have to kill your guys. And that's like sort of a way of countering that. Now, as we go here, Magic Caster. There's a different name for in each faction for it, but it's pretty much the same thing. Magic Caster is common. You can see I have 8 different spells here. Actually, each unit has 8 different spells. Some of them are the same. Sometimes when you're battling some, you'll have the same spells as them in terms of what spells your Magic Caster has. Sometimes you will not have any in common. It really depends upon which faction you're from. So I may have Rally, and then the other one, and then the person I'm fighting may not. Rally makes nearby friendly units charge at the enemy using their special attack if they have one, such as the ready charge that the spearmen have, and the shield advance that the swordsmen use. Because once the swordsmen engage in melee combat, they lower their shield to protect in melee, and their shield charge is done. This would allow them to reuse it again, and same thing for the ready charge, or the spear charge that the, sprint charge that the, spearmen use. Ready charge is something different. Telekinesis lifts an enemy and then slams them to the ground. Pretty simple. Teleport forward to safety. Now there's 2 types of teleports. Sometimes you can teleport to a whole entire different lane. If you're planning on having them attack only stuff in that lane, it may not be that good to buy it. Impact knocks over a whole lane of the enemies, doing minor damage, but units can walk over them, and the first person to stand up in front of them is the one that they will fight, so they could walk over 4 guys, then have to fight the 5th guy. This one makes units flee away in terror. That's pretty simple. This pretty much makes a unit turn against their army. If you have a troll or a giant and you know you're going up a faction that has this, it may not be a good idea to use this, as mind control will pretty much make that unit turn against your own army, and that can be very devastating, especially on siege battles. Weakness causes a lane of enemies to slow down and attack with less power. Then Fireball pretty much summons a fireball which can burn an enemy unit. Now, I bought all these. Now, you don't necessarily have to, as it has a basic attack where it just summons a ball of energy and fires it at people. Which is pretty much, that base attack is pretty much the same thing as a battle mage can do, except for a magic caster can do a wider range of spells. Now, of course, another thing we're going to need is a mounted unit. Now, you can use mounted Hailbaler or mounted Spearmen. Each one have their own strengths in terms of getting damage bonus against certain types, such as this does 25% against Spearman and Archer. I'm going to buy this one. And then the last one you probably want to buy is Javelin Thrower. It has mid-range, but it does more damage than the Archer. It Power Throw Special, which does more damage, I believe, for the first throw. The Javelin Thrower runs, allowing him to throw the first javelin further and with much more power. Similar to that of the sprint charge that the Spearmen have, and this is all just armor upgrades. Now I'm going to talk to you about fighting people and what units to use and what units not to use. Okay, up here you have the High Elves. 1, you do not want to use any spell or magic on them, as they are very resistant and very good at summoning spells. And most of their armor most of the upgrades they have will probably have upgrades to avoid spells. These ones are more well-rounded. Orcs of the North, well-rounded when it comes to melee combat, with a few good with some range. They will use range units, though it's not one of their strengths. Down here you have Orcs of the South. No relation to the Orcs of the North anymore. Orcs of the South also have battering rams that can pretty much clear units. They have their own, like, unique two-handed swordsman guys, and they can knock over enemies. You gotta be aware of that in melee. As far as I know, they also have axe throwers, which is a unique unit, which is pretty much a unit that is just as good as, like, other melee units in melee, but can also be good at range as well. So they have units themselves that are well-rounded when it comes to range and melee, which you have to be aware of that. In the main vicinity, we have the Undead. They have many different things, such as unique units, such as warlords, which also, they have their own version of it. They don't necessarily call them warlords, but they definitely have them here. You can actually play as one, as a main character, as a high elf in the game Warlords Heroes, which I probably will, which is more of a game that really doesn't really involve that much strategy on the level that this game does. Now we have the trolls here, mountain trolls, and their troll giants pretty much will annihilate anything, so you gotta be prepared for that. Spellcasters and siege units work great on it if you have the right type of siege units, such as battering rams, or ranged ones that don't have to get that close. Ranged ones that don't have to get that close are probably going to do less damage, but can last longer, as they won't be taking as much damage from them. But they don't do as much damage as the battering rams, but you'll have to use more battering rams in order to take it out. Now, over here we have the Wood Elves. They're very fast, but they have light armor, so probably engaging them in close combat is probably the key to winning against them. The Human Alliance over here does not have super strengths or super weakness in any area. In all, they are well-rounded with all of their units. Their unique siege unit is a trebuchet, which fires ranged giant boulders at people. They have many unique units, such as King's Guardsmen and Hammermen, which are like melee units, which are pretty much like my Spearmen, but they don't have as much, but they have more focus towards like knocking back enemies and pushing them away. So I guess they have a small bonus in small strength in melee, but overall they're just pretty much well-rounded. Now the demons here, they have demon unit, which is just as big, and they're like sort of like the troll giant that the mountain trolls can summon. Though the game will gonna recommend that you wait until level 13 in order to attack them, or day 13 each time you get a territory. Another level goes by before you can attack them. They recommend that, but you can attack them anyway. Also, when you're attacking a castle, they will recommend that you get a siege unit before you do that. We already have both of ours, and then you need to do that. Now, I'm going to go into battle and do one battle here, and then I'm going to go up here to the High Elves castle, and I'm going to show you how we're going to siege, because a land battle is different from a siege battle, and I'm going to talk about that, and we'll see where it goes from here. Now, this is the tutorial, basic controls and whatnot. I'm going to disable that once I show you what you need to do. Now, you can use WASD or the arrow keys. Now, what I'm doing is using S and W to move up to select your row. Now, as you can see at the top here around my spearman, there is a gold ring. What that means is that that unit is selected. I can use D or A to select your unit. Now, starting off, you're probably going to want to summon a unit right after they summon one. Also, you notice that there's a timer here that's slowly going up, even though the tutorial's still here. This timer ends. When that ends, whoever is the closest to victory wins if victory has not been decided before the timer runs out. Now, the way it works is, we're a whitish goldish, we're more of a tannish color at the top here. That's half our bar. The other half is purple, which is the color of the night elves. Now, what you need to know is that each time you get a unit onto their side, it moves over towards your side. Each time they get one on your side, it moves over to your side. Now, the main objective of this is to get enough units so that your bar at the top fully fills with your color, and once it gets to the right side, you win. If their color gets all the way to the left side, then you lose. Now, I'm going to disable tutorial, and now we're going to begin battle. Now, they summoned a swordsman, so I'm going to summon a hail baler down here as they have a bonus against swordsmen. They're also sending a battle mage. So I'm probably going to send an archer as a ranged unit to back them up. Now, swordsman down here. Probably a bad thing to do, because I didn't use the spear charge. Now, warlords are a good melee unit, and they definitely can push people back. You probably want to get swordsmen, or something with high armor, to fight them. Now, they're pretty much winning right here, because it's kind of hard at the first time to battle, trying to match up every exact one, so you try to be better than the first one, better than every single unit. So if they try to, like, out-battle them, like, if you know they have a swordsman, then you're going to summon a hail baler, and then you have to try and pick the perfect one that counters it every single time. Probably not the best thing to do, because you won't be able to do that, because you have 8 lanes to worry about, and that's going to be a difficult challenge. But if you try to do your best when it comes to that, that's fine. Now, don't forget, the main unit you probably want to use are javelin throwers, because they're good at mid-range, and they do way more damage than the archers do, but they have a shorter range. But they also have a shield, so they have more protection. Shieldmen pretty much can block any ranged attack, and are very good in melee, because their giant shield also protects them there as well. So, shieldmen are good at resisting damage from range, and good at melee. But, when it comes to the siege unit, a battering ram's gonna knock it over, or a giant troll's gonna hit it and it's gonna, like, do tons of damage to it, regardless of how big its shield is. But using these as a main unit for your battles is a pretty good idea if you ask me. Now I have my ready charge ready. My charge is ready, or as I call it, a ready charge. Now what happens here is that when I press Q, it's going to send one unit in each row. Now I'm going to do it on battering rams, because they're the only ones that are good at siege. They're just good siege unit, but they're also good in open field. They pretty much just charged through, and they just cleared every area. Now, as you can see, it did not kill this swordsman here. The reason for it is that it knocked it over, then drove over it. That's what most of them do. So if you have groups of enemies that are coming at you fast, maybe it's good to slow them down with the battering ram, because they can do some damage. Okay. Now, each time we move it over, it can also move back as well, as the enemies... As enemies can send units over it, and will move closer to their side. So it can move forward closer to the enemy side, the bar at the top. It can also move closer to your side as well. so they can undo some progress that you have made. Now, of course, sometimes there are glitches. I knew there's a glitch, for an example, in the first game where when you had a raid charge, if you hold it down, sometimes it would do 3. Sometimes it works in this one, but it doesn't work quite as often. Now, I ran out of time, but I still got victory. Now, you got the territory, yes, and what that means is now instead of being 5 difficulty, everything goes up with difficulty each turn. Now, another thing you need to know for this strategy is that in a game, you can always pause the game and surrender. And you don't get the territory, but you get money. And you can slowly do that to grind out and get money for all of your units. Have them super strong, super buff. Buff up all your soldiers and all that stuff when you want to. Now, we shall begin our siege battle. Hey guys. We are back. And we are going to show you how the siege battle goes. Now, as you notice at the top, the bar is completely purple. The reason for this is that we need to get our bar completely colored, completely over to the other side, the whole bar, in order to conquer this castle. Now, there are many ways you can do that. And some of the best ways to do that are to attack in many different lanes. Now, the one thing though is that if an enemy gets a troop all the way over to our side of the screen, it doesn't undo our progress. That's the only thing you need to know. We need to fully conquer this castle before then. Note, you can do this by getting troops into the castle or by doing damage to the castle itself. Moves the bar up. As you can see, our bar is moving closer to our objective at the top as we've gotten troops inside the castle. Now that we have this, we have a lot of units coming here. I've essentially cleared a path for my laddermen. Right at the last second, I killed the scouts running charge at me. And now that means anytime you send a troop down this lane, it's going to instantly climb up the ladder like that swordsman did. Now, for example, if I were to say, feel like there was a necessary moment where I would need to make use of a cavalry unit, what it would do is get to the door, and pretty much become a spearman now, and the horseman would the horse itself would retreat back to safety, but the infantry unit on the horse would remain. Now, because it's easier to do damage to the castle rather than just having to focus on having your guys beat down the door or climbing up ladders to get in, is why it balances out when you have to conquer it by doing the whole bar. Although, if you have siege units, using a ready charge on them is quite easy, as if you watch this, our bar goes up very fast. That pretty much is doing more. So far, those battering rams in just a few moments have done more damage to the castle and made more progress than all of our infantry units have done so far. And that's saying something. Battering rams are one of the key units you need when it comes to victory in siege units. Now, for the defenders, defending a castle is pretty much saying it's like an open field battle, except for you can't undo the progress that your enemies have made, and they have to win before time runs out. Time is on your side if you're defending. If it runs out, it can be on your side. Battering rams are one of the best things you can do. Sometimes you'll need to start out with infantry, and because infantry can get kills much faster than battering rams, since battering rams will just knock over units and not necessarily kill them. But whenever you do get a ready charge, you definitely want to use battering rams, because they pretty much... I probably wouldn't have won within the time limit if I didn't use battering rams, as you can see here. So, that's pretty much what you need to know. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. This is my strategy guide on how to play the game. When the game actually loads, they actually have a strategy guide if you want to look at that one yourself. But I figured making a video visual representation of it and showing you it how things would done would be more beneficial and maybe be easier for people to see and understand. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this strategy guide. If you want me to do one on any of the other factions within this game, please let me know by leaving a comment. Don't forget, you can also send me you can also leave questions in the comment section down below on my Zerg ID, or send it to me over Xbox Live. Gamertag is M12LRVRVSB, and I will see you guys later in another video. Bye bye.